Hi everyone, my name is Denise Yesback-Moore and I'm with howcraftcollection.com. Welcome to this episode of Creating with Howcraft. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create my tranquil bracelet. This bracelet features new stone beads just added to howcraftcollection.com. The tools we will be using today are a wire cutter, round nose pliers for fraying the end, and then I always keep my chain nose pliers just in case I need to adjust the jump ring. You will need 108 inches of 3-ply wax linen cording or the cording of your choice, and of course our beads. We are going to cut 3 36-inch lengths of cording. We're going to bring 2 of the cords together, leaving this one kind of off to the side. And we're going to pick up our lobster clasp. And we are going to string our lobster clasp. And then we're going to put this one right next to it. We're going to string it down in case you want to add these little dangles on this particular bracelet. I decided to cut it off, but we're going to string it down. And then we're going to form an overhand knot with all 3. And we're pulling that really tight. I don't string all 3 of the strands because only 2 of the strands would fit into this particular lobster clasp. At this point, you decide whether you want to cut it here or if you want to add some beads for some dangles. In this particular bracelet, I did not add dangles next to the lobster clasp. So I'm just going to cut that end. And wax linen cording is great because it tacks up really well. And then we're going to use our GS Hypo cement glue, and we're going to dab that knot, and we are going to let it dry. Our knot is now dry, so we're going to go to the end of our cording, and we're going to make a little needle. If you're using other types of cord, you can actually dip it in clear nail polish and then do this, kind of rub your fingers together, let it dry, and you will have a needle that way too. We're picking up a 4mm round red Jasper, and we're going to string this bead all the way down to the end. Let's get these cords out of the way. And you can see there's a little bit of wax. I just moved that off. Now I'm going to put both of the other 2 cords on the back side, and I'm going to form an overhand knot. And I'm just using my fingers, and I'm moving the cording down, and we're going to pull that tight. So I just laid out my Amazonite points or teeth or spikes, and I laid them out in the order that I want to string them onto the bracelet. So we separated the strands, we make a little needle. I'm going to string this bead all the way down, and then we're going to put a strand on the front, a strand on the back. I'm going to flip this over, And we're going to form an overhand knot. And we're just moving the knot down, and we're pulling it really tight. I've separated the strands, and I can see this one is the center strand. So I'm going to grab my stone spike, and I'm going to move it down. We're placing the other two cords on each side. And we're forming our overhand knot. We're just moving the knot down to right up against the Amazonite. We're pulling it tight. So now I'm going to separate my strands. Just push that down a little bit. Okay, so here's the center cord. We're going to go to the third spike. We're moving it down. And then we're bringing all of our cords together. There's the center cord, one on the back, one on the front. And we're holding it. We're forming our overhand knot. And we're just moving the knot down right up against the Amazonite. And then we're going to pull it nice and tight. Okay, let's separate our strands. Okay, here's the center. This is our last spike. So we moved it down. We placed the other two strands on each side. Now we're going to form our overhand knot. And we're just moving it down. And then we're pulling it nice and tight. Once again, we're separating all of our strands. We found the center strand. Now we're going to pick up the crackle agate oval. We're going to string that onto the center strand. And we are going to place the cording on each side of the agate. And then we're going to form, making sure I'm holding the cording right up against the bead. We're going to form our overhand knot. Moving it down. Nice and tight. So you can see how the bracelet is forming now. We're going to separate our strands. We want to find that center strand. There it is. Now we're going to string our Amazonite nuggets. These are so cool. I love these nuggets. They're very, very rustic looking. So we're going to string that through. And we're placing the cording on each side of the nugget, making sure it's nice and tight. We're going to hold the cording with our fingers. And we are forming an overhand knot. just going to move the knot all the way down and pull it tight. So let's separate our strands. Here's the center cording. We're going to get another one of the rustic Amazonite nuggets. We're bringing it down. Okay, I have it butted up. I'm holding the strands with my fingers. And now we're just going to move the knot down. We're going to pull that tight. Separate the strands. And here's the center strand. We're going to string our last nugget. Placing the cording on each side of the nugget. Put that cording down. And we're going to form an overhand knot. We're just moving the knot down. And then we're going to pull that nice and tight. You can also pull it tight this way. Okay, so our bracelet is starting to form. It's looking good. Okay, we're separating the strands to find the middle cord. Make our little needle. Now we're picking up our red Jasper lentil. This is about 20 millimeters. We're stringing that right into the center, right up, butted up against the Amazonite. And we have the cords on each side. We're forming an overhand knot. We're going to pull that tight. Okay, we need to separate our strands again. Here's the middle. Now we're picking up our Amazonite rondelle, stringing it down. Placing the cords on each side. And we are forming our overhand knot. Make sure that's nice and tight. Bring it down. We can separate the strands to make it nice and tight. Move those cords a little bit. And we're separating the strands. Forming our little needle. We're picking up a rectangle matte Amazonite. We move that down to the knot. And we're placing the cords on each side of the bead. And we are forming our overhand knot. Pull it nice and tight. And we have all of our beads now knotted onto the bracelet. Now we're going to string our 6mm or 8mm jump ring. And just for fun, I'll show you how to open and close a jump ring. This is how you open and close it. We want to make sure that the ring, that there's absolutely no gap because it'll slip off the cording. So that's very butted up right against it. So now we're going to string our jump ring down to the end, and we're going to form another overhand knot. We're just going to butt that knot right up against the ending knot. We're going to pull it tight. We're going to separate the strands and pull those tight. Now we're going to create our little dangles at the end. So we're going to separate the strands. The reason why I like to leave length on the end when I'm creating these dangles is it's really hard to tie a knot if the cording is super short. So I always like to leave a lot of cord at the end for my dangles. So we just formed an overhand knot, just moved it just a tad. We're picking up our 4mm red jasper round, and we just string it on the end. And we bring it down. Sometimes you'll get some of the wax. I just kind of move that off with my finger. And then I'm going to form an overhand knot. I'm just moving that down, butting it up right up against the bead. And then I'm going to cut it with my wire cutters. And then with my round nose pliers, I'm going to come in and fray the end. And we're going to go to the second cord. And I'm eyeballing this. You can make them different lengths. And there we have our second knot. Picking up our 4mm round red jasper bead. We're stringing that down. We're forming an overhand knot. We're just going to bring the knot to butt up right up against that bead. Using our wire cutters, we're going to trim the end. And then we are going to fray the cording. This is our last little dangle. We formed an overhand knot. We're moving that knot down. Picking up our 4mm round red jasper. And these little 4mm round red jaspers are on the same strand as the lentil red jasper. Okay, so we move that bead down. We're forming our overhand knot. Moved it right up against the bead. We're cutting the strand with our wire cutters. And then using our round nose pliers, we're just coming in and separating. And there you have it. How to create my tranquil bracelet. Like and subscribe on YouTube at Howcraft USA. Follow us on Instagram at Howcraft Collection Beads. Visit our website for more fun projects and free DIY instructions at the DIY library. Visit howcraftcollection.com for all your beading needs, and I hope to see you next time.